What up, y'all? This is Reek Havoc. Y'all know what time it is. We back here with the Havoc Hour, and y'all gotta bear with me right now because I gotta still struggling to get all of this information together with this breaking news that we just got about Rob Gronkowski. I'll get into that in a second. We're in month two of Corona Madness, obviously, and hope everybody's staying safe. Hope everybody is keeping themselves preoccupied, not getting stir crazy around here. But due to very recent events, I'm scrambling to kind of rejigger how I'm gonna do the show today because some big breaking news just hit, and I'm gonna start off with that, and we're gonna go right into my football talk. But if you're not currently watching TV right now, watching ESPN or have any sort of media connection whatsoever, Rob Gronkowski, formerly the New England Patriots, Tom Brady's bestie, just got traded to Tampa Bay to go play with Tom Brady, Mr. 43-year-old greatest of all time. In the span of 2 hours, Rob Gronkowski went from retired and signed with WWE to strongly considering leaving retirement to rejoin his old buddy Tom Brady in Tampa Bay, to now the deal is done. He has just been traded, and New England is receiving a fourth-round pick in return for Mr. Rob Gronkowski. They're also receiving a seventh-round pick along with Rob. So, how did we get here? You want the answer to that? You got to ask Tom Brady. Obviously, he's out to prove a point that he can win. He can still be the GOAT. He can still win championships without the stewardship of Bill Belichick and Bob Kraft. This, like I said, this came out of nowhere. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody expected this to happen. But this is where we are at. Brady now has a stable of weapons that includes Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, O.J. Howard, and now his former best weapon on the field in Gronkowski. This is quite a coup for Coach Bruce Arians. I mean, if you think about what he had last year, and now the overhaul of this offense, this is going to be huge for them. I will say, though, if you're O.J. Howard, I'm strongly considering asking for a trade right about now. Draft is coming up. I'm going to get to that in a second. In 2 days, we will have the draft. That's about as good a time as any to start seeking out trade or any partners, anybody that's looking. Perfect time to get some kind of compensation for players. That's typically something that we see during the draft. So, we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, that's the big story here. Tampa Bay receives Rob Gronkowski from retirement. It's still being covered right now. It's still talking about it. Still more news trickling in. But as I was saying, the draft is quickly approaching in 2 days. I'm going to get into that really quick. This Thursday, 7 p.m. Not sure how they're going to set this up. It's supposed to be a virtual draft through TV screens. Obviously, people can't gather in mass crowds anymore. So we're going to be seeing a very different draft than we used to seeing. But the results are just about the same. Joe Burrow obviously is the consensus number one. Cincinnati, barring anything unforeseen, should be picking him. Obviously, we hear all the time, every day there's some news about rumors of trading up, moving down in the draft, and teams looking to maneuver themselves in position to get this player, that player. From what I understand, at this point in time, at this stage in the game, nobody has made any inquiries, made any trade-ups to get Cincinnati's number one pick. I don't expect there to be any. As far as I'm concerned, he's going to Cincinnati. Let's just call it what it is. I feel for him because Cincinnati is where a lot of players go to die. it's not the place you go to win. I think the only saving grace will be that they have franchise tagged AJ Green, so he's not going anywhere. And if he is healthy, that's one of the best weapons you can ask for as a rookie quarterback. So that's a little light in that tunnel there, but either way, it's Cincinnati. There's nothing to be excited about for going there. I know the kid has a good attitude. He's said in interviews that he's a winner. No matter where he goes, he doesn't lose, and he just has an optimistic attitude about wherever he's going to wind up. That's good. Trust me, you're going to need it. But outside of that, you've got a pretty interesting QB class and this lineup here coming up. Obviously, before we got to talking about Joe Burrow this season, the talk was all about Tua Tagovailoa, the previous consensus number one top quarterback in the draft originally, before all this season went down last year and Burrow slaughtered everybody. We were all talking about Tua Tagovailoa, and then during the season he was injured, had to go get surgery, and now the talk has been his health, whatever concerns general managers and coaches are going to have about it going forward. From what I'm hearing these days, there isn't as much concern anymore. He's still very much, if not neck to neck, he is right behind Joe Burrow as one of the top QBs in the draft class that will be getting picked. But there's also Justin Herbert. I read something earlier today that the Giants are scouting Justin Herbert pretty hard. That's interesting. You just sent Eli off to pasture to retire, and supposedly going all in on Daniel Jones. But if that's the case, why are you scouting Justin Herbert? I would think that the focus would be on Chase Young, Jeff Okudah, something like that. One of those guys. I'll get to them in a second, but that would be where I think the focus would be. We don't want to start quarterback controversies when you just started a new era with this quarterback. And because Daniel Jones proved everybody wrong. When they picked him up, I was thinking, what's wrong with them? Why would you get this guy from Duke that nobody's heard of and doesn't seem like he's going to be much? Obviously, he did enough. And if you're going to go with him, go with him. Go all in on him and build around him. But, and the other guy who I think is really not getting enough love either is Jalen Hurts. We're talking about Burrow. We're talking about Tua. We're even talking about Herbert. But Jalen Hurts was there before everybody else. Jalen Hurts was winning national championships before we were talking about Tua, before we were talking about Justin, before we were talking about Joe. Somehow he got lost in the shuffle. Even though he was in the Heisman conversation, he had his team, got his team to, the college football playoff. So I don't know how this happened, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe fortune smiles on him. He'll wind up with a pretty solid team, maybe a contender, because I don't hear anybody talking about Jalen Hurts right now. And that to me is rather disrespectful. I mean, come on now. Did you not see this guy playing at Alabama for, what was it, 3 seasons before Tua took over? Come on, man. Let's get it together. But that's okay, because when the Patriots come in and scoop him up, God, I hope that don't happen. Or the Chargers, or, maybe even the Panthers. One of those teams come to scoop him up, y'all gonna be sorry. I'm telling y'all that now. But we don't know what's gonna happen. Miami is looking for their next quarterback. They have some draft picks to burn, more than enough. There's talk about a lot of teams looking to trade down. Redskins are looking to trade down. Supposedly the Giants as well. So there's opportunity out there. But I got my players to watch here in this draft. I'm gonna be looking at real closely at these guys. Obviously, my 2 guys I just mentioned from my Ohio State Buckeyes. That bad man Chase Young, and that to me, Joe Burrow aside, Chase Young is the player of the draft, the player, the best. You just look at his intangibles, look at the size of this guy, the speed, his strength that he has. I don't think anybody should be passing up on Chase Young whatsoever. Like, it's not even a question in my mind. That guy is a difference maker on any defense that he lands on. He is a hybrid of both Bosa brothers. I think he's a hybrid of the two of them, and he's better than the both of them. I think he's stronger than Joey. I think he's faster than Nick. And that is the deadliest combination you can ask for if you are in the market for an edge rusher. I know my New York Jets are in the market for one, so here's hoping that they wise up and go snag him, honestly. But yeah, Chase is definitely one. Another I'm looking at is Jeff Okudah. Another person I don't think is getting enough love because that dude can ball. Let me tell you something. They weren't calling Ohio State DBU for nothing. Their D-backs, led by Jeff Okudah, were putting on a show. So I think it's about time we start giving them some love. Also, the receivers, Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, either one of those guys are going to be a number one on any team they land on right now. I say Jerry first and foremost because, his speed, his route running is second to none right now in this draft class. CeeDee Lamb is definitely a difference maker. He takes the top off in offense. Or the top off of defense, I'm sorry. But, yeah, he's definitely somebody that is going to be a difference maker on an offense right now. But, Alabama, they just produce receivers left and right. You look at Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones. Now they're both playing for the same team, and you see what they do. Those guys are one-of-a-kind type players. And, Jerry's just the next in line there. CeeDee Lamb is kind of quietly developed as that 1A, 1B to Jerry Jeudy. And I think somebody has the capacity to steal him in the draft. I know a lot of mock drafts had Oakland taking him. I would love for my Jets to get him. We need a lot. So here's hoping. But my last guy I'm looking at is Isaiah Simmons in Clemson. I think something that gets lost in the shuffle here is the amount of defensive players that Clemson is producing. You saw the entire defensive line they had from their last championship win. They all were top draft picks, and they are killing it right now. Clelin Ferrell in Oakland, he had a nice rookie year. Dexter Lawrence, what I'm saying? Those guys. And, Isaiah Simmons is he's a linebacker, edge rusher. So, but it's, they're all linked together. So, that's big. That's definitely big. But, those are my guys to keep an eye out for. If we're watching the draft on Thursday night. I really, really wish I could have a watch party. I want to be able to, sit up here, do some commentary, and talk about it with you guys because, I love watching the draft. And unfortunately, being a essential worker, working in the hospital, I don't get to sit back and enjoy. But, I will be watching. I will be keeping an eye out. So, fortunately, I just can't do it here. But, it is what it is. Anywho, other news we got today. This morning, it was announced, or Lamar actually dropped the news himself. Mr. Lamar Jackson, he's going to be on the cover of Madden 21. Obviously, that wasn't really a surprise there. Lamar was the belle of the ball this year, the MVP, was the standout player in the league, and nobody had more sizzle, nobody had more excitement. The Ravens were on the map this year because of him, so that's not shocking to anybody that he's on the cover. Obviously, now the question becomes is, the Madden curse something to worry about? It comes to get everybody. He says he's not concerned, but let's face it, Everybody says that, and at some point in time, it comes around and it hits pretty hard. Pat Mahomes wasn't exempt. He was out for a couple games this past season. But then again, he won the Super Bowl, and he was a Super Bowl MVP. So I don't know. Maybe it's coming. Maybe it's not. I know that it's got a pretty decent track record, but I also know that Lamar Jackson is a one of a kind athlete. So if I was a Ravens fan, I wouldn't be too concerned, but something you want to keep your eye on. You don't want Antonio Brown coming to town though, because if he does, then I'd be worried. Because Antonio Brown is a cancer, a problem. You don't want him anywhere near your young quarterback. I can tell you that right now. Absolutely not. That's going to be a problem. But otherwise, that kid is special, and they did a good job keeping him protected last year. So I think the same. Would expect to see the same next year. Needs to work on his passing, but I mean, that's about it. His accuracy. Get him upright, keep him protected. He'll be fine. But that's next year. He'll be on the cover. And my last order of business in football here is that Odell Beckham Jr. currently with the Cleveland Browns. This is a little mystery story that's been brewing. So last month there was a rumor that circulated that Odell supposedly was being shopped with Minnesota, the Minnesota Vikings, potentially for a mid-round pick. And that story just kept floating around for weeks. About 2 weeks ago, that rumor was debunked. It was announced that no trade negotiations, no conversations were had. They never picked up the phone. Okay. Then last Friday, Mike Freeman, who covers the NFL for Bleacher Report, he had 3 different sources tell him that a trade for Odell Beckham is imminent. He didn't say who, didn't say where, didn't say that anyone had had a conversation yet. He just said that a trade, according to the sources that he has been told, a trade is imminent. Someone is coming to get him. Well, if that's the case, we'll see. Like I said, the draft is on Thursday. We will see what happens. It is not surprising to see draft day trades, post-draft day trades, and obviously Odell Beckham is a hot commodity that you definitely want on your team if you're looking to contend. So keep your eyes open on a couple different teams. The Patriots are definitely one because they're going to rebuild, and Belichick has an affinity for Odell. It's a mutual thing. They both kind of want to play on the same team, so that's one to look out for. The Raiders are definitely one. The Chargers are one. The Colts, definitely the Colts. But, we'll see what happens after the draft, during the draft. But you heard it from me. I'm not confirming or clarifying, but the rumor, the story is that Odell, in all likelihood, could be on the move sometime very soon. All right, and I'll keep posted about this situation with Gronkowski as more details keep coming in. It just happened, not even an hour ago, so it's a fresh story. I'm gonna keep rolling with it as the details come in. But I gotta talk about something this week. If you guys are any kind of sports fans, if you got any kind of basketball fans, ESPN premiered the documentary The Last Dance, episodes 1 and 2, which centers around the Chicago Bulls dynasty back in the 90s with Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, Steve Kerr, helmed by head coach Phil Jackson. So the Last Dance essentially was the final championship run that they had, the sixth championship back in 1998. And it was the last time that this nucleus of talent was together winning a championship. And this documentary in 10 parts is going to take us through that final season and dissect all of the little intricate parts of it. So, episodes 1 and 2 premiered this week. I just got to see them the other day. And I can tell you, if you are a fan of sports, basketball, the Bulls, Michael Jordan, any or all, or some combination of it, you want to watch this documentary. You definitely want to watch it. I mean, it was like, it just transported you back to the 90s because, you know, you just kind of relived the greatness that was Michael Jordan for all of, you know, an hour or 2 hours rather. And the first two centered around, obviously, first one was Michael, more so about, you know, his story. And the second kind of focused more on Scottie Pippen. But big takeaways from me, first and foremost, right out of the gate, Jerry Krause. If you don't know Jerry Krause, he was the general manager of the Bulls from 1985 to 2003. So he oversaw this dynasty, all 6 championships. He put together, you know, all the players, watched them grow and win championships throughout the 90s, and obviously as they disbanded. So he is the mad genius that put this dream team together, but he's also the I want to be kind to the man. He's not here to defend himself anymore. He passed away 3 years ago, but he kind of got a bit of a big head, or just felt that he wasn't getting enough credit for his part in what we were seeing. You know, he put this team together, and he was the one who got it done, the one who signed the contracts, the one who made the deals, but all anyone was talking about was the players. And he made a statement during that time saying that organizations win championships as opposed to the players. Now, the media can be funny. They can really twist and contort the words that people use. So I think he was a bit of a victim of that. But he sounded a little bit sour. So his words caused a bit of a rift between him and Jordan. Because at the end of the day, Jordan is the one who's on the court. Him, Pippen, Rodman, the whole squad, they're out there. They're playing. And they're getting the work done. And they're beating these guys on the court. And so for him to say that organizations win championships, not players, or whatever the correct verbiage was, that didn't sit well with Mike. That didn't sit well with him on behalf of his teammates. Because it wasn't just about him. He was about his team. And he felt that they deserved the credit as opposed to somebody up in the front office. So that was very, very deep, because when you think about it, you know, these guys, to have such sustained success for so many years, for that to just fall apart because someone decided they were ready to move on and, you know, blow the whole thing up and start over, that's really crazy to see. I mean, you know, if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. So I don't know what the big part of it was the big issue for him was that he felt the need to, you know, go in a different direction and change things, but that's what happened. And as I'll get into in a second, it caused really a lot of a rift, well, not just with Michael, but with plenty of other players on the team. But also, another part of the first episode was delving into, you know, Michael's career and how he started from college, working his way up, and getting drafted to the Bulls in his first couple of seasons. You know, you really, if you don't know much about him, you don't understand how competitive this man was. They really delved into, the origins of it all, what made him so competitive. I mean, he was, one of many children that played sports and, got into activities and things like that. And his brother was probably his biggest competitive rival. I mean, they talked about they would have fist fights after one-on-one games because they were that competitive. And obviously, he took that with him to high school, to North Carolina, and then ultimately into the league to play for the Bulls. And, we saw, that competitive nature just, it made him deadly. It made him different from everybody else. So, he was at North Carolina. Dean Smith just saw that progression in him, that he went from his freshman year being one of the best on the court to years later, he is unquestionably the best player on any given court at that point in time. I mean, they saw what they had with him. And he, you don't hear about this anymore, but he told Mike to go ahead and go pro. He could stay at North Carolina, play another year, but he told him, no, you go ahead, you capitalize on your potential, you go ahead to the NBA. He truly respected Mike and who he was, and he wanted to do what was best for him. I think that's really important. That's the kind of coach that you want to play for when you're an athlete. Somebody that's not looking to take advantage of you and that sees your talent, sees your greatness, and knows what you can be, but also doesn't want to keep you and exploit you for himself. I think that was something real special about Dean Smith. So that was really episode 1 in a nutshell. Episode 2 focused more on Scottie Pippen and his teammates, Jordan's teammates. You got the background of Scottie, where he's from, and some hardships he had growing up, but he was still a top pick in the draft when he came out. The Sonics drafted him, and the Seattle Supersonics, who, for those of you out there who never heard of them, they were a team. They took the place of what is now the Oklahoma City Thunder. But once upon a time, Seattle Supersonics were a team. I remember. But Scottie was drafted by the Supersonics, and then that day, the Bulls made a play to draft him, to trade him, get him traded to the Bulls. Also, another move with Jerry Krause. But he came in, and he, immediately, was, if not for Jordan, the best player on the court. He was the Robin to Jordan's Batman. If you know the story, you know how this goes. I mean, they were two peas in a pod. They could not be stopped when they were together. So what it goes into is, after Jordan had his brief little retirement, right? 93 to 95, he went to go play baseball and enjoy his golf. But, obviously basketball is his first love, so he came back. What they don't tell you is that during that time that Jordan was out, Scottie led the team in scoring, assists, blocks. He was an all-star MVP. All these things were true. So, basically, without Jordan, Scottie is the driving force of the team. He is the life and heartbeat of that team when you don't have the GOAT. And so, the way that he was mistreated in terms of how management saw him, Krause, and I won't say the owner, because, he happy to keep everyone together. But again, this was with Jerry Krause. He wanted to sustain success, but he wanted to do it his way, and I think that was the biggest problem. But the the way that he was doing Scotty so dirty like this, I mean, the amount of times that where he had conversations about trading him, you know, seeing what was on the table for Scottie Pippen when he had given his life to this team. I mean, it's sad, man. It's really sad. You see the deal they tried to give him, 7 years, $18 million. I mean, come on, man. That's sad. That's really sad. And then Scotty gets hurt. He holds off surgery because of this, because he doesn't feel he's getting a fair shake, because he's not being treated like the starter he is by management. So he holds off on surgery. He prolongs it so that he's essentially holding out. And then the team struggles because of it. You know, they went 0-4 on the road, losing games to the Wizards, the Hawks, the Suns, and the Cavaliers in the 90s. Let me tell you something about the Cavs in the 90s. I didn't know they existed. I didn't. I really didn't. I saw their logos and stuff like that. I did not know they were a basketball team. I really didn't. So that tells you how much Scottie Pippen impacted the team. But he was, just done dirty. He was mistreated, and he let them know about it. He was upset about it, and they talk about how he was really just taking digs at Jerry every chance he would get. He would take a dig at him because he just, why would you talk about me like I'm special, talk about me like I'm important, and make me feel like I'm special to the team, but then you just go out and you shop me and look for potential trade partners from me. Why would you do that if I'm this star that you led me to believe I am to you? But that's a big part of the bulk of episode 2, along with, of course, how Jordan responded to all of this, because when Scotty's away, he's got to shoulder the load. He's got to put the team on his back. So he talks about how, he got real snippy with his teammates. He started cursing guys out, being real tough on them in practice and everything like that. He said going into when the documentary was released that he said that, he would be seen as the bad guy. People would think differently of him because they're going to see him in a different light. But that's just competitiveness when you think about it. I mean, when expectations are so high and you expect so much out of each other, you've been champions already. You've won 5 titles. You're not gonna expect anything less than another championship. And at this point in Jordan's career, it's like, I'm not gonna expect anything less from my teammates. Scotty is a major part of the team, and he keeps the ship afloat with us. He keeps a sense of stability when we're all on the court, but he's one man. This is a team of multiple guys. We got to get together. We got to get it done. So, seeing him, really get on guys' tails and everything like that, I think that was a nice insight into the competitor that he was and what made him so great. But, even Jordan had his own issues with injuries sometimes. That early on in his second season, he came down with a pretty bad foot injury that he had to sit out. And this story that they told is nuts to me. He had to sit at home and he had to let it heal, and they wouldn't let him come back. Obviously, you're not going to take any chances. When this guy is your franchise, you're not going to risk re-injury. So he had to sit at home, and while he's sitting at home, while he's rehabbing, eventually he starts going back to North Carolina to his old college and, you know, going to the pool and rehabbing and doing more exercises and stuff like that because he's starting to feel a little better. Now, he was supposed to be staying away from basketball, or at least from playing. But obviously, who knows his body better than he does? He decides, well, let me start playing some one-on-one. And that moved up to 2-on-2, then 3-on-3. And eventually, he got into a couple 5-on-5 games. He didn't tell the team this. So when eventually, well, he told them eventually, but he wasn't disclosing while it was going on. When he came back, he had let it be known that, yeah, I was playing some 5-on-5. And obviously, old Jerry Krause, he wasn't happy to hear that because, you know, invested a lot in you. And, you know, with the chances of you being re-injured, we don't want to hear that you've been out playing 5-on-5 when you're supposed to be getting healthy. So, I mean, that's just another layer of who this guy was. You know, you could not keep him off the court. And when he came back, they tried to. They gave him a minutes restriction. I think they said it was 7 minutes. 7 minutes that he was allowed on the court. And he had to come out. And of course, that, you know, when they got into the playoffs that second year, they were in a real tight game. He didn't want to come out of the game. You know, it was kind of tight. You know, you want to be, when you're a talented player, you want to be on the court to decide, you know, the outcome. And luckily, they won that game, but, you know, he had to go in there for 7 minutes and just give him hell because that's all he had. But he made the most of it. And they went on to play Boston in a series. And this was big because this was one of his biggest performances ever in only his second season. He's 21 years old, and he was playing against Larry Bird in the Celtics, and he dropped 63 points. Bird, in that documentary, said that he didn't believe that was Jordan. He believed that was God disguised as Jordan. If you know anything about Larry Bird, he is one of the greatest of all time as well. He is, a lot of people would put him on their Mount Rushmore in basketball. So for Larry to say that about you, that's about as big a compliment as you can get. So yeah, that was something. That whole second episode, man, you gotta watch this. If you're not watching The Last Dance, you gotta get on the ball, man. It's a great documentary. It's a great insight to not just Jordan, but the team as a whole, and you know their chemistry, the dynamics, you know, everything about him. So that was episodes 1 and 2. Episodes 3 and 4 are dropping Sunday night at, I believe, 9 o'clock. So definitely want to go check that out. It's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. As a fan back in the day, I enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it. It's gripping. Now, my next order of business here is in the world of wrestling because they had a pretty rough week. And I'm using that term lightly because, among other things, the XFL folded, as I said last week. But after the XFL folded, WWE had to cut back costs massively. They cut off, as it stands now, it's close to about 20-ish employees, both on-air talent and backstage employees and such. But very notable names, notable guys who are on the roster. You know, the Revival, Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, Sarah Logan, Rusev, a lot of big names that they had as on-screen talents are gone. For a lot of those guys, they needed to go. It was time because they weren't going to get the proper treatment that they deserved in Vince's company. It just wasn't going to happen. They need to go somewhere else to spread their wings. But for other guys, it's really sad. You saw some videos from, Drake Maverick, some posts from Leo Rush and EC3. It hurts a lot of these guys because, even if they weren't getting the best exposure there, it was home. And, now for them to be cast out, not so much just because they weren't good enough or anything like that, but just because of this global situation that has put all this strain on everything. The XFL was just one domino that fell. At the end of the day, Vince McMahon had pledged $300+ million into that project. And so, now now you have creditors to pay. And that's another story I'm going to get at the end of this topic. But, that was Black Monday for them, unfortunately. Those guys, you feel for them. Nobody wants to lose your job like that. And, for any of those guys out there, hopefully they get back on their feet and into some new promotion, stuff like that. AEW's always looking, and New Japan. But that's some more bad news. But now, this week, they announced that WWE is considered essential. And so because WWE is considered essential, now they can continue uninterrupted running their shows weekly as they have been. And they've kind of been circulating between taped shows and live shows. Well, next month, we're not in May. Yeah, next month, they are having their Money in the Bank pay-per-view, sorry. And they come up with this new concept for it. Basically, since the whole having shows in an empty arena and performance center with no fans is getting a little stale, they came up with this new concept that is going to involve, for the Money in the Bank ladder match, is going to involve every superstar in the match on the ground floor of WWE's corporate building in Stamford, Connecticut, and they have to get to the top of that building, to the roof of the building, into a ring that is going to be set up on top of the roof with a ladder and a briefcase hanging from a structure above the roof. Yeah. So, I gotta be honest. I'm stumped on this one because I like it, but I don't know about it at the same time. Because the success of the cinematic matches that they had at WrestleMania, the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse match, they kind of inspired these ideas. But we're talking about scaling the top of a massive building, the multiple floors you have to go up just to get to a ring on top of the roof. They used to do stuff like this back in the 90s. They filmed the Monday Night Raw opening on top of the same building. So it's not the first time they've done this type of thing, but it's been so long. You have a whole generation of people who've never seen it before. And this now, for it to be a ladder match on top of the roof of the building, I mean, I will say this. You got to give them credit for the creativity. They have not lost their creative juices a bit. And they are flexing every muscle that they have in that department. So kudos to them for coming up with this idea. Hopefully, it goes off without a hitch, but at this stage in the game, you never know. You don't know what to expect. So that's next month. And we look forward to that. What I also look forward to, and I'm going to make this very brief because this this is a topic I want to save for when I'm on with my boys at Young Kings Wrestling. Young Kings Wrestling podcast. If you don't know, go check it out. My boys Malik and TC. But yeah, I'm gonna say a lot of this for them, but I'm just gonna touch on it briefly. So, if you don't know Ronda Rousey, she's an MMA champion, formerly in the UFC. She's a UFC Hall of Famer now, and she at one point was one of the top stars, athletes in sports. She worked a year in WWE this last year, from about 2018 to just last April. So she made some comments recently. After WrestleMania last year in April, when she lost her belt, she took a nice little hiatus. She's trying to start a family and everything like that, and she's on her ranch with her husband and everything. But she made some comments recently on Steve-O's podcast that kind of dug a little bit into the casual fans' nerves, saying how the fans being ungrateful have led to her not wanting to come back full time, and refer to the business as fake fighting for entertainment, and saying how her saying that is going to lead to some soft and bruised egos. And she went on a real tirade. But anyway, the point I'm getting to here is, as fans, we had a thing about people using the term fake when you describe wrestling. These people spend 300 days a year on the road doing this for people's entertainment, and they put their bodies and health on the line every single time. So anybody that uses the F word in regards to wrestling it's just rude. It really is. Yes, it's choreographed. Yes, the endings are predetermined, but you still have to work to get to that ending. So for you to use that term, that it's fake fighting, it's just it's in poor taste. And more so from Ronda, because you worked for this quote-unquote fake fighting for an entire calendar year. You went on that grind that they did 300 days a year. So you understand what they go through. So it's insensitive for you to use that terminology to say that. And to call fans ungrateful just because they don't like to see you smiling, happy, go lucky, and everything like that. That's not why fans liked you when you were in UFC. They liked you because you talked a lot of trash and you beat people up. But I more take exception with the bruised ego comment, because I'm going to tell you something right now. For you to call anyone else having a bruised ego, or accusing other people of having a bruised ego, when you disappeared off the map after losing one fight, that's pot calling the kettle super black. Seriously. You got to look in the mirror. You are not in any kind of position to call anyone else soft or having a bruised ego. But I'm not going to get too much in that. I'm going to save my tirade for when I get on my boys' show. Young Kings Wrestling, y'all go check it out. Say it again. Anywho, yeah, that's a hot button topic for me. But speaking of hot button topics, that brings me to the other part of this week that's been rough on the biz. So, as I mentioned earlier, the XFL folded. Essentially, they had to suspend operations. They filed for bankruptcy. And that has led to now a lawsuit coming for Vince McMahon, because Oliver Luck, who was set to be the XFL commissioner, was the XFL commissioner of the league, he wants his money, because he was set to get 20 to 25 million over 5 years as the XFL commissioner. Now, with the bankruptcy filing coming, he's looking to recoup that money because his contract stated that he would be due the remaining balance if he was terminated without cause. Now, the problem here is that when Alpha Entertainment, which is the parent company of the XFL, filed for bankruptcy, they also filed to have the top execs reject, or their contracts rejected. Make sure my notes here. Yes. So Luck was one of the top execs not involved in the bankruptcy filing. So that's the first issue. The second issue is that he was never listed as a creditor. You file for bankruptcy, you got to pay back your creditors, the people who have loaned you money. So Alpha Entertainment filed to have those executive contracts rejected. So the money that he was due as commissioner, that gets put out. And then, of course, because he's not listed as a creditor, now technically he's not owed money. So, with all those things in consideration, he's looking to recoup his money. So he has filed a lawsuit against Vince McMahon. The damages have not been disclosed, but I would imagine they're going to be hefty. So you're having a rough week, Vince. I'm sure you'll bounce back. You always do. You beat the federal government, but you think you need some milk, buddy, because this is a tough week for you. It's a shame. It's a shame. Now then, my last order of business for the show today. This, what I'm about to tell you, brings me some great sadness to say. But it is my duty to inform you that the PFL, Professional Fighters League, has suspended the 2020 season. They will resume with their regular season in 2021. Their fighters are set to receive a monthly stipend to cover for not having fights during the season. That's going to be that. I obviously am very sad to report this because I was fully looking forward to going to cover these fights. Did so last year. Had a very, very great time. Met a lot of awesome people, fighters, media personalities, journalists. I mean, it was a ball. It was a really great time. I'd never been to Atlantic City before, never been to Vegas before, and I finally got to do all those things just from covering PFL. So, like I said, that on top of all the people that we met have been so great to us and so welcoming. It's unfortunate that we won't get to see it this year because this coronavirus situation, man, it's really taking a toll and it sucks. So that's going to be on hold, unfortunately. But the plus side of this is they're taking care of their fighters, and this is something that we've said many times. When I was doing another show, I spoke about this, and we spoke on it ad nauseum. This promotion puts their fighters first, and that's something that should be applauded and commended because, at the end of the day, the way MMA works is, in professional MMA, you don't fight, you don't eat, you don't make your money. This promotion is saying, well, we can't sanction these fights, but we'll take care of you guys in the meantime. That's something that's greatly appreciated. So big shout outs to Ray Sefo, Pete Murray. You guys are awesome, and I definitely look forward to coming back and covering your fights again when we can get going and get back to normal. So shout out to you guys. It's just sad. It's bittersweet. It's good, but it sucks. Because if you're a fighter, at least someone's looking out for you. But if you're a fighter, you want to fight. And for us, we were looking forward to it. So uh, that's the real rough news today. Uh, Also, on the topic of suspensions here, UFC also have suspended 249, 250. Several different shows across the globe have been suspended, obviously, and that was discussed already. But on the flip side, uh, they are looking to put together a card for May 9th. Now, if you're up on your world news, uh, there have been talk of some states looking to reopen for businesses and stuff like that as early as the first week of May. So, due to this sense of optimism here, obviously Dana White, who's been at the forefront of keeping sports afloat during this crisis, he's taking advantage and he is putting together a monster card that he is looking to put on May 9th. With fights including, but not limited to, Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje for the interim lightweight belt, Henry Cejudo defending his bantamweight title against Dominic Cruz, who we haven't seen in a long time, Francis Ngannou versus Yair, Donald Cerrone, Anthony Pettis. We also did have a fight on here. Amanda Nunes defending her belt against Spencer, but she's been forced to pull out of that fight a few days ago. She's not able to get a full fight camp, and obviously, if you don't have full preparation, you shouldn't fight. So she's got to pull out of that fight, unfortunately. But the rest of that card is beyond stacked, and if you can get that set up for May 9th as soon as possible, then the better. So that's some good news. Dana White will not go quietly, and he was the last of the dominoes to fall, but he's looking to be the first to get back up. So shout out to him, man. We need fights back. We need our sports back. Bellator also postponed 244, their event on June 6th. It just was announced today. So across the board, you just have so many things getting brought to their knees as a result of this situation going on across the world. I mean, we're, like I said in the beginning here, we're on month 2 of this, so it sucks. But everybody's trying to stay positive and have some optimism for a return to the norm, because this is rough, man. This is real rough. I'm not trying to go much longer without sports. My last little note here is a little situation that's been brewing the last couple of days. Israel Adesanya, the reigning middleweight champion of the UFC, got into a little Twitter spat with Tyron Woodley. Tyron went on and called out Izzy for just kind of being a hype train. You just are having a lot of noise coming in your direction lately, but it took a jab at him for being kind of scared to fight Yoel Romero in his last title defense. So they had their little spat there, and Izzy responded saying, if he wants an issue, he won't be hard to find. Don't make me come after you. They had their little back and forth on Twitter, and then Leon Edwards came up because, for those who don't know, Leon and Tyron were scheduled to fight in London this month, actually. Obviously, with everything going on, that was shut down. And Leon called out Tyron for, just accusing him of trying to dodge a fight with him again. Because they were supposed to, they've had a lot of talks about fighting, but he calls him out for trying to dodge the fight with him. And, Tyron clapped back at him as well. So, I mean, you got a lot of tension here a lot of tension. I don't, I don't take a whole lot of stock in it all, but it's just an example of, what I was just saying. There's a lot of people going crazy without their sports. And, these guys, especially these fighters who have been waiting to get their hands on each other for so long, we got to make this happen. Dana, if you got your island, set your island fights up, man. It's time to roll because this is getting out of hand here. So, yeah, that is the bulk of it all. That's the news I got for you guys. I thank everyone that's tuning in for listening. It's been a wild week. And we got more coming. Like I said, I'm gonna do my best to drop news about the draft on all my pages. If you follow them, go check them out. The Havoc Hour on Instagram. Also, I'm on Anchor, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. So I'm gonna do my best to keep updated with everything going on there. I wish, like I said, I could do a draft party, do a little watch along, and kind of simulcast with you guys and do some commentary. But duty calls. I work in the hospital. Rona. It is what it is, y'all. But yeah, appreciate y'all. And real quick, before I sign off, if you haven't already, I need you, readers out there, especially you poetry readers, to go out and hit up Amazon and pick up your copy of Scattered by Design 2 by Josh Harris. That's my main man, my brother. He has dropped his second book out. It is already climbing way up the charts on Amazon. I believe he's number 4, number 3 for African American poetry right now. My man, I'm gonna try and get an interview on here with him at some point in time. Whenever all this is over and we can, go somewhere. But I'm gonna set that up and I'm gonna share that with you guys. But yeah, Scattered by Design 2 on Amazon. It's $15. It ain't a lot. Go cop it. We ain't doing nothing but sitting in the house anyway, so you might as well read. Anywho, that's been the show. Like I said, thank y'all for tuning in. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate the love and support. I will be back next week with more of the hottest topics in sports and entertainment. This has been Wreak Havoc. I will see y'all next week.